Does it ever get old seeing your name on a bottle?
No, it's actually quite a scary thing.
But you are Australian only. Yeah.
I guess it's in my blood.
Everyone at some point probably has had a wine in their life. There's no right or wrong.
All right, first ever guest on the potty, Masto.
It's
Love that.
exciting, mate. Nice haircut too, by the way, JB. Yeah,
So much. Mine a
thanks,
little bit more forced than yours, I reckon.
I've had one as well.
Yeah, well, you might have the best hair in
mate.
mine.
It's a good head of hair,
Yeah.
bro. You get a perm?
Yeah, apparently.
Hey, you're welcome, Larry. Anyway, thanks for being
Thanks.
our first
no,
guest,
I haven't
brother.
had a perm. No,
That's
I've been
natural.
accused of it many
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, Larry Cherubino with us, our first guest. I don't know, hard to know where to start with you, I reckon. You've got such a diverse range, been at it for such a long time.
Like an onion.
Yeah, I bet. Does it ever get old seeing your name on a bottle?
No. It's actually quite a scary thing, actually. Well, I used to be quite worried about it because, you know, if it wasn't any good, obviously it'd always come back and get you.
You had to make it good.
Yeah, exactly.
But you make about 400 different wines a year now, don't you?
roughly about 400. No, there's a lot of wine, but I suppose it's what we do, and you know we've also got a lot of vineyard and a big diversity of vineyard and variety, and you know the important thing is to actually make sure that gets a place,
100%,
and you know a voice.
I suppose that's where it starts, right? It always started. But can you tell us about where you started with getting your first vineyard, getting into the wine industry?
Look, so we're 20 years this year in terms of the Cherubino business.
Happy birthday.
Wow, yeah, happy
Thank you.
birthday.
And you know, when we started, we didn't own a vineyard, we didn't own anything. So it was very much the bottom of the industry. Probably the last cycle in 2002 to 2005. It was very, very difficult from a supply point of view. We had this massive amount of plantings. And so we got in and, you know, there was a lot of fruit that was available, some really good fruit that we were able to access because it just didn't have a home. And we sort of started the business from that point. And then, you know, some vineyards became available and they were really great vineyards and we bought them.
It's one pretty special one down in Frankland.
Yeah, that's a good one, and it's a really good one. It's something that's required a lot of attention and love, but it's certainly producing, and it is at the heart of the Cherubino brand, really, because it's Riversdale. It's just a very, very good vineyard. So we were able to acquire that, and look, sometimes it doesn't matter how much you pay for these things because you spend probably 5 times as much refurbishing them and bringing them back to life, but certainly, from my point of view, that all the best wines and all of the best estates around the world are the ones that are really all about soil.
Yeah.
And, you know, the wine, you know, yeah, sure, we've made some nice wines along the journey, but they get consumed and people forget about them and then you've got the next one. The thing that doesn't change is where they come from.
Yeah.
And that's the story that you have to tell because, you know, at the end of the day, most people they just want to enjoy a glass of wine, have a good time. This is the vast majority of people, and they want to know where it's come from and how it happens. And it doesn't matter whether you're 50 years old or 500 years old. That's the common denominator for great wine estates.
Yeah. I want to get my hands in that soil though, like
well, that's the thing. Yeah,
pick up all the rocks, put them in my mouth,
and I suppose, you know, the wine business, it's, you know, if you own land and own vineyards and own all the bits and pieces, it's really fancy farming. You know, we're farmers at the end of the day. If you're anything else, you're a negociant if you just buy grapes. And, you know, there's a certain amount of risk that is dodged in that pursuit.
But it takes the romance out of it, doesn't it?
Well,
in my mind.
I mean, yeah, it's a pretty tumultuous romance, but nevertheless, it's one.
Normally the good ones are, right?
Sorry?
Normally
it's
the
not
good
meant to be
romances
easy.
can be a little bit
they're just, you know, full of vitriol. But anyway.
What makes that dirt so good? What's going on there that makes it so special?
Look, there's a couple of things, but within Frankland River, or the Great Southern, as opposed to some other regions around the state, if you're there, there's just so much consistent good soil. You know, if you're in other parts of the state, Margaret River, you might have 100 hectares, and from start to finish, you might get 4 or 5 varying types of soil across your entire patch of land. In Franklin, if you had 100 hectares, there's not a lot of variation. It's just consistent and such a high quality. Probably from our point of view, we're right on the banks of the river, so we've got a lot of river country. And in that river country, you get ironstone or these oxidised loams, really red soils meeting granite.
Yeah, perfect.
And that's almost the perfect marriage. I mean, granite gives wines a lot of tension and a lot of brightness and freshness, and the ironstones give the wines a lot of depth and a lot of power at the same time. So it's why that place works so well. We're very lucky. We're just really lucky. Any farmers that have a good product, they're all just blessed by the country they have, and then if they're doing well on top of that, it's all down to management.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a couple steps back though. Originally, you're an Italian family.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I could be. I could
I'm
be Greek.
Slovenian, brother,
Yeah,
so
right.
I'm just next door to you. But does that heritage have a big part in actually getting you into the wine industry at the start,
Yeah.
or is that by chance?
So look, when we were dairy farmers, but we had cattle and farms, and I was always really interested in farming. I loved it. Probably it was something that would hold my focus.
Yeah,
Because not a lot of other things.
I feel you, brother. Yeah.
Not a lot of other things necessarily did. And so there's enough going on in sort of growing, and there's a lot of things that happen in that setting on a daily basis. And if I had to stick to one pursuit and just punch out widgets, I would have gone insane a long time ago. But so, growing up in a family farming background, I wanted to be a farmer, but the circumstances didn't allow that to sort of happen. So I had to sort of go off on another journey, and careful what you wish for, because you might end up, getting that. And so farming's, it's an interesting pursuit, and that's what we are. But I really do. That's the aspect of it that I love very much. And I suppose from a family point of view, my family made wine, but it was at best, it was pretty.
In the back
it was
shed.
okay salad dressing.
Yeah, a little bit of grappa even.
I had relatives that made grappa. Yeah, not that it was legal, but that was there was a bit of grappa, and certainly I had a granddad who had an acre of land, and what he would churn out off an acre was quite amazing. And so I look at things that we're doing on a larger scale in terms of how we're farming and what we're doing to soils. It's not that dissimilar. And I mean, I'm not that young anymore, but there's a lot of kids coming through, and they some of them have the opinion that some of these principles and practices are nouveau. It's been happening for a long time. Yeah. So just wake up.
It's a big challenge in the farming industry, with the younger generations coming through. Do you see a similar challenge in the wine industry?
Yeah, look, it's the same, and probably the level of investment in the wine industry is a lot more significant than it is just in broadacre. In saying that, the cost of land doesn't matter where you are now. Farmers, for the first time in a long time, their enterprises and their land and their properties are worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
And those properties that you're either selling out or you're getting bigger. And the wine industry is like that in a number of ways, because you either have to be at the really pointy end or at the bottom end, because the middle ground sometimes is just not profitable.
Yeah.
That's the reality. It's really sad. But that's there's you've either got to make diamonds or deal in coal dust, and the stuff in the middle just doesn't work. And so for us, we're pretty focused, and we've had to add other things to our business to allow us to sort of cover a lot of ground, so to speak.
So is that something you were aware of at the start?
No.
No?
No one's. I mean, when we started the business, not at all. I was pretty apprehensive, because I'd had a lot of really good exposure in small and large businesses, and I did a lot of consultancy for 15 years of my career all over the world. And in some of those situations, you actually get to learn more than you impart.
Yeah.
But certainly, I knew exactly where the risks were, and so I was aware of it. But 20 years on in this business, I'm a lot more aware of it, and and even today, you just sort of look at opportunities and you go, you know what, it's a great idea, but
is it doable?
Is it doable? And the answer is, more often than not. And at the moment, we've probably got a business full of a few things that I thought were a great idea at the time, and we're actually just tidying things up because at the end of the day, you just want to be hyper focused on what you're really good at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you also innovate as well. I think you've got the biggest plantings of Fiano.
Oh, look, when I was doing all of that travelling and consultancy work, I was working with a nursery, and we've got Fiano, we've got the biggest planting of Nebbiolo, and we completely re-engineered a whole bunch of farms. So we've got a huge planting of a clonal Syrah and Cabernet, and we brought in, I've even named a few clones after myself after I brought them in because I'm not at all egotistical, but certainly, and they're just starting to filter through, and what I'm seeing, genetics, clones, and things of that nature, how can you not say? And then people say, well, what does clone matter? And of course, it matters, look at
Gin Chardonnay and not Gin Chardonnay.
Look at your career, some people are just more, but are blessed, and
you just got to duck and weave, brother. It's all
so that's really important stuff, and they're the sort of things that are going to take the industry forward. And probably I probably won't get to see some of that stuff, but certainly someone else will.
But I suppose on that though, you've realised pretty early, WA's great, we can make Cabernet, like Chardonnay, we can do all these noble varieties, but also like the climate, and if you're planting in the right spot, you can go and get your Fiano, you can go and get Nebbiolo, you can have a play and see. Is that correct in saying that? Because it's so pretty diverse.
Look, if you think about the genesis of and the genesis of the Australian wine industry, it was all born out of continental Europe. So it was Syrah, or it was Cabernet, and it was all of these things that worked in continental Europe. Certainly, if you had your time again, WA is a little bit different, but certainly if you had the time all over again to reinvent the industry, go back in time, have a time machine, and go back in time, and look at it and go, you know what, we're in a climate that's pretty dry. We've got these areas around the coast, and we've got some cool climate things that tend to marry up well with some of these varieties, and let them run their course. You would actually, we would be a completely different industry. We would have different varieties, and probably in terms of water and in terms of farming technique, we would be much better off. So at the moment, we're going through a lot of pain, and whether or not people will go through that pain to actually reinvent what's happening in their vineyards, I don't know, because it's only getting drier. And so some of the things that we've done are all based around getting and dealing with that. And, for example, in Frankland, we get, some years we'll get 400 mil, some years we'll get 500-600 mil of rain. We'll catch water out of a puddle and store it if we need to. We've got 5 times the amount of land area devoted to water catchment as we have vineyard area, and we need to do that. And one of the things that we've achieved probably in the last 12 months that we've been working on for the last 7 or 8 years, and we certainly didn't start off to get that accreditation, but we're climate neutral. And what that is just a supercharged version of being sustainable. Our farming techniques aren't biodynamic, they're not organic, they're not. We don't have sustainable certification, but what we've got is climate neutral certification. And what that means is that we're not just carbon neutral, we're not just sustainable. Everything that we do, we're actually putting more carbon back in to our soil. So I can't remember that, it's a significant amount. And the way and we started off that process by going, well, if you and the numbers are, and I'm going to get a bit technical here, but if you can improve your soils by 1% in organic matter, it's anywhere between 50 and 100,000 litres of more water that's available per hectare. To increase your soils by 1%, you've got to grow thousands and thousands of tonnes of mid-row cropping to actually achieve that, whatever it is you grow down the middle of your rows. But we've managed to go from 1.5% to about 6%. And the impact on that and on our fruit and our wines and our soils has been immense, and specifically the wines. But it means we've got this ability to actually grow our fruit and have some credential around that.
Yeah.
And the most important thing is the sustainability aspect of everything that happens now is probably going to be more and more important.
And thank God though, like everyone's just looking for short, quick fixes that if you want to be doing this in 50 years, like
you need to be doing that, and that's what it's all about. Regenerative farming and being sustainable and actually, sure, we can trade carbon and we're part of a carbon project now, but that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about actually making sure that whatever's happening, we've got enough water and enough oomph to get us through the next 50 years. And so, we're not in any one camp. We're not biodynamic.
Yeah, cool.
We're not organic. We're a bit of all three. Some people in the industry get a bit.
Yeah, they get nose up if you don't have the label. Like,
but we have a label, but it's something that we've got now.
Yeah.
And I've seen enough of viticulture and farming systems around the world in the last 35 years of my career to know that you can't be dogmatic. You've got to be really open.
Yep.
And all of the best enterprises that I've ever seen are the ones that have been really innovative, and they just haven't. Fundamentalism in anything is not necessarily a good thing.
As long as they care.
Yeah,
right?
you've got to care.
If you don't love it, you don't care.
And that's the most important thing about biodynamics, for example. I'll use that as an thing. Some of that stuff, I like the concept of Santa Claus, but but I also like being able to explain why things happen, and that's part of the concept of those things. You actually end up paying more attention to what's happening. But anyway,
so 20 years, mammoth achievement. Probably a time. I don't know if you get the chance to look back and reflect and think about that stuff, but humour me when you do look back at the journey. What are the stories that you hang on to for the early days, or the parts of the journey that you reflect back on, and if you're really proud and happy about?
Oh, look, I remember, I was making bits of wine in 5 different locations. And, I was, at one time I had 20 people supplying us with fruit. I would fly to, San Francisco for a week to go and see a client and, have to program my picking in. So when I got back, I'd land at the right time. Some of it wasn't fun. Some of it was a lot of fun. I think the biggest thing about it all is you've actually built something and accomplished something. In saying that, being the industry that it is and being farming, everything always balances on a knife edge. If you want to go and do all of these things and not sit still, you're constantly pushing. And so the thing that I'm really happy about is that, we've had a lot of successes along the way, but people forget about that really quickly. What they don't forget is they don't forget what you've created. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Were there times in that 20 years where you thought, too much, too hard?
On a weekly basis, I probably think that on a weekly basis, to be quite honest.
Really?
And probably, the first 2 or 3 years, everybody loves you. The next 3 years, everybody accepts you. The next 10 years, they all hate you for being successful.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where, I don't care anymore. I'm just doing what I'm doing. And I know that people appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a good spot to get to, isn't it? But I suppose if you ride the wave on it, that's where you get caught out, right?
Yeah.
Because attention moves away from other stuff.
It does. And you just got to focus on the product. And ultimately, you just have to make sure that the people that are buying your wine and your customers, that you focus on them. You got to just maintain your focus on them. And if you become bigger than that, and then it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're playing a guitar or cooking a meal for somebody. The minute you forget about who's walking in your door, it's when it's over.
You play guitar?
No, God no.
You're a music guy?
I like music.
Yeah?
I reckon like a little banjo.
Banjo?
Yeah, I can see you
What
playing.
about a lute?
Yeah, that might be fitting. Yeah, I like it. Hey, on the punters, how do you reckon they're changing? So, with Cherubino for 20 years, there was, probably like 20 years in the industry before that. What's the change you've seen in the people who drink the stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I suppose, if I look at our database, for example, there's a big split.
Yeah.
And it's like anybody starting a business today, or anybody that's got a brand on the cutting edge. What they've got to understand is the people that are going to go along with them on their journey, they're going to get old. And maybe their taste will change. You know, they don't want the thrashy heavy metal. Their ears are going to bleed if they keep listening to that for the rest of their life. Yep. And so they've got to be really understanding of that. And they've also got to understand that parents, the kids of those parents, kids these days, they don't want to be seen to doing what their parents are doing. I don't know.
What a shame.
Yeah. No, we're awesome.
But it's a thing, right? You kind of want to move away, even if you come back to it. Right?
Look, and, you know, people often look at the diversity, and I'm not trying to appeal to anybody. I've got a lot of passion in wine across a lot of different genres of wine.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I don't want to sound like a complete weirdo, but I look at every single brand that we come out, and there's 9 of them, and they've all got a different concept.
Yeah.
And if I think about anyone that's ever made music that I really love, they've reinvented themselves so many times and they nail it every single time. So why can't I try?
100%.
Yeah.
And you're moving and rolling with it. Yeah. So how many wines do you actually make?
Oh, there's probably 70 products.
Yeah.
I think some of them are like 50 cases, and the others. And look,
isn't that the beauty though? Like those ones you do the Uvo egg stuff. Like I'm assuming that's tiny.
No, it is, and you know that's a really good. I mean, people love that product, and that is, you know, we made a decision, and that's been running for about 11 years now.
And it would have been pretty cutting edge, really, at the time, 11 years ago.
Yeah, and look, we've only just started showing that wine to people to review, and we've just let people make their own. And I just thought, you know what, we'll let people make their own. Cool. We're bringing out a range of terracotta stuff, and we use a huge amount of that. That project has allowed us to incorporate that mentality and philosophy across up and down.
Yeah, awesome.
And it's been so good for our entire range of wines.
Oh, mate, just adds another little paint, you know, colour to your
We've got lots of them. We've got eggs everywhere now.
Yeah.
It's a cool story to tell too.
Yeah.
Like I know it's about more than that, but like part of it is the storytelling. Like is that something you think of when you're making decisions on kind of range or the next thing to do or opening a restaurant?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always, I look, we're always looking for things to do. I always I cop it because we've got too many wines, but you know, if you look at the market and the way the market works, I mean, we're an industry, particularly domestically, that we're dominated by the retail. 85, maybe a bit more of the retail is dominated by, and I'm not saying anything bad or good, I'm just making a statement, by 2 parties.
Yeah.
And then there's all of this other 15% in between. So, you know, we sell wines through our own venues, through our own restaurants, through the bar. We sell wines directly to our consumers and to our subscription people that we offer subscriptions to. But where our model really works well is a market like the UK that has so many levels and layers. You've got regional wholesalers. You've got you know, distributors within the M25. Outside of that, you've got fine wine wholesalers, and we take basically all of our brands and our ranges to the UK. And you know, it's like having one. Like if I had all of those wines under a Cherubino label,
you can't hit every point.
I can't talk to people that I want to talk to, and I want to talk to people about our wine. I don't want to sell necessarily thousands and thousands of cases of wine. I want to make some money one day, but at the end of the day, I want people to see these regions and to see these expressions. That's I'm in it for the wine.
Yeah,
I'm not in it for. If I was in it for the money, I would have all that investment. I would have, you know, be on the kicking it in the Bahamas,
belly up. Yeah.
Are you sourcing fruit from like every region? Do you get any Swan Valley stuff or
no? Look. Nothing from the Swan Valley, and we don't buy any fruit anymore. We farm everything.
Unreal.
Just about every berry we're in control of our own destiny.
Unreal.
And you know, I'm actually really proud of that.
Was that a goal for you?
Yeah. Look, you know, when I used to run a wine company and I had 300 growers.
Yeah. Wow.
And you know, it's a lot of energy to be nice to people all the time.
That's it. Well, you know, it's your stuff. You can do what you want with it. Now you've got to balance the other side, right? When you've got people knocking on the door going, hey, can we have a bit of that?
Look, I mean, you know, we do have one large customer for a big chunk of our fruit in Frankland, and I do sell some fruit to one other who's a friend of mine, and only because I know he'll make some really good wine out of it, so I'm happy to do that. And we used to have 5 or 6 or 7 people that we sold fruit to. But at the end of the day, I want to see the right thing happen to it and them doing well out of it. That's important.
Would I be wrong in saying, and we can cut this if you don't want it, a lot of that Frankland Shiraz or Syrah going to a big company starts with P in a different state?
Yeah.
And going in the top end stuff?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that WA has got a portion anyway in Australia's most famous.
Yeah, look, they really like it.
No doubt.
They like the expression of Franklin because it's a lot of flavour on a relatively light frame that has a lot of tension.
Yeah.
So when you blend that into some powerhouse stuff that's like a big muscly V8 muscle car, and you put a little bit of finesse in with that. It makes, and so they like it, and I'm happy that happens. It's really good for the region, and so it's good for us. It's good for the region, and I mean, it is a very, very good region.
Yeah, no doubt.
As is Pemberton, as is Margaret River. Everything's got something to offer. I think some of these other regions just need to be redefined, and we need to get the right varieties happening in them, which is happening slowly.
Yeah. I mean, you were talking about the time machine and, going back
Uncle
50
Rico's
years.
time machine.
Yeah, that's it. If we could find one, we'll let you know. And maybe how things would be set up differently. If you're going to jump in that thing and go 30 years forward, what do you reckon the industry looks like in WA?
Look, so I worry. I mean, obviously we've had a lot of rain this year, and how quickly you forget once it rains that there wasn't much last year or the year before.
Yeah.
And so what's happening is the rain it's not consistent anymore. And if you have a look at a year like 2024,
crazy,
it usually takes us 10 weeks to pick all of our vineyards. We picked them in 4.5 weeks.
Yeah, nuts.
Wineries ran out of refrigeration. They ran out of water to just wash things with. And it was just so fast and furious. Luckily, I'd like to say that all of the work that we've done with, all of our farming techniques, that our vines did have quite a bit of resilience and stamina to get through all of that.
But imagine you didn't. Imagine the guys that haven't done that and what they were doing.
They had no crop.
Ruined people, yeah.
And it was just financially, we're still recovering from it.
Yeah, no doubt.
But certainly we got through it in the best way that we could. I would like to see a lot more Mediterranean whites in the ground, and a lot of Mediterranean whites in the ground. A lot of these white varieties growing on islands in the Mediterranean. You see things like Chenin Blanc, and when I ran Horton for many years, and I've made more white Burgundy in my time there than white Burgundy's made than Burgundy's made in 50 years. But that's but Chenin Blanc is something that works extraordinarily well in this state. It doesn't like that unseasonal rain, but we're just not getting that anymore, and so that's a really tough thing, and we need more varieties that are tough and resilient. And so things like Viano work well. There's some Spanish varieties that work really well. I'm not a massive fan of Tempranillo, but there's other things that we're growing like Mencia, which I think we grow that in Franklin. It's just unbelievably good.
I haven't seen that. I've got to check that one out.
I'll get you a bottle of it. You can have a look at that. So we need to have things that grow in climates that have similar rainfall and dry patterns the way we do. And certainly...
the consumers just got to catch up and realise the reason why, which is good. Is so good to see, because
one thing we've learnt having a restaurant and wine bar, you put some of these things in front of people, and they are just really. And you look at big distributors now, and you look at their portfolios, and the amount of Sicilian wine or Italian wine, obviously at a price that's coming in, it's people are just open to it. They want to drink it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people probably don't realise how hard it actually is. Like, you're talking about growing all your own grapes, but then you have so many channels that you have to do effectively to sell it. So you start venues down south, you have City Cellar in Subi. Like, that's a big part of, you have to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, it's pretty hard to get by as a business. So we've got to have respect, for how hard it actually is.
And look, you can't go to a distributor now and ask them to do everything for you and help build your brand. You have to take matters into your own hand.
Yeah.
And anyone who's not prepared to do that, and it comes at a cost in the medium term.
Yep.
But if you don't invest, and it's like, wine now, and, you look at wine and you look at technology, and, wine is just becoming so digitized, and it's like anything else now.
Yeah.
And so you've got to adopt, particularly, and we're going through a whole process. And look, I don't know much about it. I've got people in team members who are heading this up in the business who are all over it, and they've managed to convince me. But but certainly, I'd like to say I might have had a little bit of an idea, but not much. But look, the point is that it's changing a lot, and people don't even have to taste anymore. I think it's a given that most of what when I was growing up in the wine industry, European stuff tasted terrible, and it was green and it was all over the place. Now you buy a bottle of wine, and it's good. Most wine is really really
it's
good.
got to be.
Now it's all about it's all about the 3 Ps. So and it's really important. How much does it cost? Where is it from? And and does it have provenance? Yeah.
What's the stuff you see overseas that really excites you? You're talking about traveling a fair bit, seeing what's going on in other parts of the world, obviously to get your wines out there too. But what do you see others doing that gives you some insight to what could come here?
Look, it's really quite interesting. Some countries have really progressed in terms of how they're engaging. For example, 20 years ago, if you went to Italy, you couldn't just walk into a winery and have a meal and drink some wine. And these days, they are really embracing, that engagement directly with consumers a lot more than they have. On a regional level, if you go to a region, the support of the wines of that region and the producers of that region is pretty strong. What I don't like in this country sometimes is that we, obviously we do like our wine, but I think venues and businesses need to support Australian product a lot more.
Yeah.
And it's quite amazing. We have venues, and there's 9 times out of 10 you'll walk into a restaurant and you sit down, and that sommelier or that person looking after you could be from they could be from France, they could be from Argentina, they could be from Italy.
Yep.
And what are we doing to educate them so they go and take the word back when they go and work in their next place? So, that's really important.
It's an opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's a good
and
point.
so some of these countries are very good about being very loyal to why they're there in the first place. And so I think we need, and look, I'm guilty of it to a degree, but they're doing that really well. I think as far as, our biggest problem in this country is that we have to send a lot of wine overseas because we just don't, we've got great ideas. We've always been very good innovators. We have great product. We just don't have the population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of a numbers game.
And our consumer, for example, when it comes to Chardonnay, they can go out and spend $50 and they'll rival something that costs $150 from Burgundy, but they don't understand. Yeah. So, and they're all spoilt for choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt.
What are you loving in the glass at the moment? What's the last thing you tasted that you went, that's absolutely crushed it? I love that.
Where from?
Anywhere, I don't know.
Oh, look.
What have you been tasting that's just grabbed your attention of late?
Look, I was in the UK for 3 weeks, and I was drinking quite a lot of English sparkling wine.
Yeah.
Some of it's really delicious.
Yeah.
And,
some of it's pretty bad too.
Yeah, some of it is. I think that the really serious ones are making really good stuff, and when you see, and the French are there, making a go of it.
Yeah.
And they're investing. So there's some pretty good stuff there, but it depends. I just try and drink to broaden my understanding.
Yep.
There's that much going on at the moment. You'd have to drink every single night to keep you.
Yeah, no doubt.
And the older you get, you think, well, I'm running out of time. I've only got 10,500 days left of my life, technically.
Not counting or anything.
And you just got to work out, what you want to do.
I've just got this vision of you with a big calendar at home, crossing off those days. Hopefully it's closer to 12,000 to 10.5. But all right, another thing done, another day off. Let's go for tomorrow. It's not a bad way to look at it, right?
Well, you got to make it count.
Yeah, exactly. And so 20 years for Cherubino. What surprised you most
we're still
the
here.
journey. Yeah,
yeah, we're still here.
It's a bit of a running theme.
People like the wine, and probably what's really interesting, I think, in the last 3 to 5 years. I mean, it's really interesting. I still, up until 5 years ago, I would run into people. Who are you? Which is kind of good.
Yeah.
But I think probably from what I'm really happy about is in the last 2 or 3, maybe 5, push it out to 5 years, that the brand is, what I hope to achieve for the brand is that it's becoming very strong.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm happy about.
Well, I think you could kind of see that as well. We've talked a lot about diversity in vineyards, varieties, but even in the top 100 this year, I think you've got 6 wines in the top 100 by the people who voted for, but the first one's the Pinot Grigio.
Yeah, number 3. I remember seeing the results and being really nervous.
Yeah,
I was like,
I'm happy with that.
Because it was one of your least expensive drops.
You know what? I am really, really happy about it.
Yeah, it's
because
cool.
You know what? That's people have a budget.
People drink it. Yeah. And that was the cool thing for us when we saw that top 100. The diversity in people's votes was just crazy. You kind of had the big dogs, the little dogs, and everything in between when it comes to varieties, but also producers. Some producers I've never even heard of. And like, I'm in the wine industry, do this shit every day. Yeah. And I'm seeing like, what the fuck is that? And it's so cool.
I mean, I spent the best part of 2 days voting for myself.
Well, you did a good job.
Yeah, that's it. That makes me feel better because I do remember seeing it. And when you do a public vote, the results are the results, right? And I thought, how are people going to feel if stuff that's at the lower price point, but in a weird way, it makes sense because that's the most accessible, right?
Yeah. No, look, this is the thing. In my career, in terms of whether I was working for heading up a company that I didn't own or my own business, I'd hate to think of how much time and money and wine that I put into the show system.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It's a lot.
And 3 years ago, we just said, you know what, we're not doing it anymore. And the only time that I think you really gain a lot of, we'll go and win, I think, in 2021, we won 10 trophies for our Chardonnay.
Huge.
It was an internal backslap. Good on you, Laz. You've done really well. Go and ask the person down the road, how good's this Chardonnay?
Who cares? It used to be so different as well. Like I've heard stories 10 years ago, something would win a trophy and we'd be selling pallets of it like the next week.
The reason that you sell, when we sell wine, so for example, if something's got a $20 price point and we win a trophy for it, that's when the needle moves.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't move when something's $50 or $60 or $40. It really doesn't make a lot of difference.
Yeah, okay.
And you can win multiple trophies for that wine. You could win, I think those Chardonnays won consecutive best Chardonnay and best white wine trophies. We've won international trophies. You know what? It didn't even move the needle. But when you have a $25 Shiraz and it wins a trophy and best red wine of show, that's what moves the needle.
Yeah.
Or
hopefully we got you a few extra sales on that Pinot Grigio.
Or you have your event, which makes an impact. And so I think, again, it gets back to what I've said. These shows, they're not really connecting with the consumers, so people have forgotten about who actually buys and consumes this product.
Yeah.
Well, internal backslap was kind of how you put it. Ours is more like a public bum tap, I reckon. It's just...
I reckon that's much more enjoyable.
Yeah, me too. And in terms of connecting, that's why it's great to kind of have you in, have a chat.
Yeah.
There's so much we've left on the table, so we'll run it again another time, I reckon. But
love you.
Thanks so much for coming in and having a yarn.
Appreciate you so much, man.
Good.
We'll have a glass together when we get off here.
Yeah,
Cheers, bro.
Cheers. Thank you.